William submitted his resignation in silence after his final night shift, no one looking back. He believed it ended there, a single father leaving a billion-dollar corporation to make it home to his daughter. But 3 days later, as twilight fell, a knock echoed outside his small, worn apartment. Standing there was Serafina Sterling, the most powerful CEO in the city. She looked straight at him. "I accept, but I won't lose you." Sterling Dynamics operated like a miniature city, 73 floors of glass and steel rising above the financial district like a monument to ambition. Glass corridors stretched endlessly under harsh, fluorescent lights that never dimmed, creating a perpetual, artificial day. Machine rooms hummed with frigid air kept at precisely 62 degrees Fahrenheit. Ventilation fans whirred in relentless rhythm, moving 17,000 cubic feet of air per minute through ductwork that snaked through walls like arteries. In the belly of this empire, far below the executive suites and conference rooms, William Carter moved through the mechanical labyrinth wearing a gray technician's uniform that had seen better days. A toolbox hanging from one shoulder, its weight familiar after 6 years of night shifts. His back curved slightly from exhaustion, vertebrae compressed from hours bent over machinery. But when he examined the electrical panels, his focus sharpened like a surgeon reading vital signs. He saw patterns where others saw chaos. He heard warnings in sounds most people never noticed. He recorded notes in pencil inside a worn leather notebook, pages yellowed from constant handling. The pages filled with technical symbols and diagrams, voltage calculations, and safety protocols written in precise handwriting. Tucked among the technical entries were initials in a different script. A. C. Failsafe. Audrey Carter. His late wife's handwriting still lived in these margins, a ghost in the machine that kept this building alive. She'd taught him to see systems as living things, to feel their rhythms, to know when something was wrong before the alarms ever sounded. Bernie Collins appeared without warning, voice cutting through the mechanical drone. "Move faster. VIP suite needs inspection tomorrow morning." Bernie wielded his small authority like a weapon, using every opportunity to diminish. "You're slowing down the schedule." "Just a repair guy, remember that." William bit down hard, jaw tight, but said nothing. He asked only one question, voice measured and calm. "I need to leave 30 minutes early. My daughter has a doctor's appointment." Bernie's laugh was sharp and cold. He kicked responsibility toward company policy, the implication clear. Single fathers don't get choices here. 40 floors above, Serafina Sterling sat in a glass-walled boardroom. Her long, blonde hair fell in soft waves past her shoulders. She wore a tailored blazer over a subtle V-neck blouse, every detail precise. Her eyes held the temperature of winter. Archie Sterling, her father, stood at the head of the table, his voice granite. Aurora Demo must be flawless. No mistakes, no excuses. Clinton Hayes, the chief financial officer, leaned forward with budget projections. Corbin Reed, legal counsel and business partner, pressed about investor timelines. The pressure built from every direction. Serafina spoke little, but her words landed with force. "I want the system operating at 100%. There will be no apologies." Miles away, in a modest apartment with peeling paint and outdated fixtures, Matilda Carter sat at a small desk. She was 7 years old, clutching a worn teddy bear, eyes drifting to the clock every few minutes. Her phone lit up with a message from school. William's phone vibrated in his pocket while he stood in the equipment room. He pulled it out, read the message, and froze for exactly 2 seconds. Long enough for anyone watching to see panic compressed into stillness, long enough to understand what was at stake. He looked at a small family photo tucked inside his toolbox. 3 faces, only 2 remained. "Just a few more days," he whispered to no one. "Then I'll get out." The night before the Aurora demo, Sterling Dynamics transformed into a pressure cooker. Bernie Collins demanded extended shifts with manufactured urgency. No one leaves until this is perfect. We have investors arriving in 14 hours. William checked his calendar. Tomorrow, 10 in the morning, Matilda's follow-up appointment with the pulmonologist. The cough that had started 6 weeks ago hadn't responded to treatment. He needed to be there. His phone rang at 11:47. The school nurse. Mr. Carter. Matilda has a high fever. 103.7. She's having trouble breathing. You need to come immediately. William's world compressed to a pinpoint. He walked to Bernie's command post, voice steady despite everything. I need to leave for 1 hour. My daughter is sick. High fever. Breathing problems. You leave, I file a violation report. Suspension pending review. No pay during demo crisis. Choose. The words hit like designed weapons. The hospital was 23 minutes away. Matilda was 7 years old, scared, struggling to breathe. She had one father. Then the alarm system erupted. Red lights flashed across every monitor. Pressure alerts multiplying. Temperature spikes in cascade formation. Backup power flickering. The technical team scattered, voices rising in panic. Bernie shouted meaningless orders, technical gibberish from someone who'd never developed competence. William ran toward the machine room, toolbox banging against his hip. While others checked monitors, he went straight to physical components. The valve assembly, recently replaced, wrong specification. Someone had swapped standard parts for inferior alternatives. Sabotage or incompetence, the result was the same. He grabbed salvaged components from storage, parts others had discarded. His hands moved fast, recalibrating, compensating, rebuilding safety margins with whatever materials remained. 38 minutes later, warning lights turned green. Pressure stabilized. Temperature normalized. Aurora Demo saved. By morning, William sat in a hospital emergency room, Matilda sleeping against his chest, oxygen monitor on her finger reading 96%. Bronchitis, probably. The doctor wanted observation, more tests. Treatment his insurance might not cover. His phone buzzed. Company. Crisis averted thanks to Bernie Collins, operations manager. Exemplary leadership under pressure. His daughter's breathing was still labored, and someone else was taking credit for work that had kept him from being here sooner. Adelaide Monroe from Human Resources called 3 days later. Mr. Carter, we need to discuss your unauthorized system intervention. She read Bernie's accusations in a sterile office. Unauthorized access. Failure to follow chain of command. Reckless intervention. You're being formally reprimanded. William looked up, eyes red-rimmed but strangely calm. Does company policy cover the right to be a father? Adelaide couldn't meet his eyes. No one answered. That night, alone in his apartment while Matilda slept, William wrote his resignation letter. His signature felt like closing a book he'd been reading too long. He dated it, folded it, and placed it in an envelope. He submitted the letter at the end of his final shift. Security barely looked up when he placed his ID badge on the desk. His colleagues watched him walk through the exit, but no one spoke. No one intervened. The cold night air hit his face like judgment. The first week without a paycheck felt like falling. William calculated rent, medication costs, Matilda's school fees. The numbers didn't balance. He picked up small electrical repair jobs, cash work from neighbors and old contacts. It wasn't enough. His landlord called. You're 3 days late. William applied to another company. The hiring manager called Bernie Collins for a reference. The doors closed. We've decided to go with another candidate. Matilda tried to help in ways that broke him. She folded laundry without being asked. She made instant noodles for dinner, standing on a step stool to reach the pot. One night, she asked in a small voice, "Dad, did you quit because of me?" William knelt down, eye level with his daughter, throat tight. "No, sweetheart, I quit because I wanted to live with integrity." She wrapped her arms around his neck. "I just need you here." He started packing boxes, preparing to leave the city. He'd found work 3 hours away, lower pay but stable. He looked at the skyline through the window, the towers where he'd spent years. "I lost here," he said quietly. His phone rang with a call from an unknown number. He let it go to voicemail. Inside Sterling Dynamics, Aurora began failing again. The exact same errors William had corrected. Bernie Collins stood in the control room, confidence evaporating as warning lights multiplied. He had no idea how to fix what William had built. Serafina stood in the observation deck, watching her CFO calculate projected losses. Millions in investor commitments, credibility accumulated over decades, all hanging on a system that suddenly seemed fragile. "Get me the maintenance logs," she said to Finn Parker, head of internal security. The digital records told a clear story. The night of the crisis, only one person accessed the machine room with the technical knowledge to execute the repairs: William Carter. Timestamps, keycard data, camera footage from the storage area. While Bernie Collins was shouting orders 3 floors away, William was saving the company. The security footage showed something else. Bernie Collins entering the supply room earlier that day, swapping out components. Close-up. Wrong specification numbers. Either catastrophic incompetence or deliberate sabotage. Serafina requested William's personnel file from Adelaide Monroe. Page after page of disciplinary notes. Each one minor, but the pattern was damning. Most violations occurred on days William requested early departure or schedule flexibility. Days when Matilda needed him. "The system punishes people for having hearts," Serafina said aloud. Adelaide cleared her throat. William Carter submitted his resignation 4 days ago. Serafina felt the ground shift. She'd built an empire on control, on predicting variables, on managing risk. But she'd never calculated the cost of losing someone essential until they were already gone. Archie Sterling's voice came through the intercom. "Don't let this become a scandal. Find a solution now." Clinton Hayes suggested hiring external consultants. "Or we delay the demo." Delay meant failure in the eyes of the board. External consultants meant admitting internal incompetence. Neither was acceptable. Serafina picked up William's file, noted his home address, and made a decision CEOs rarely made. She would go herself. "I'll find him before it's too late," she said, stepping into the elevator. Serafina's car pulled up outside an aging apartment complex in a neighborhood far from glass towers and executive suites. The building wore its age visibly: cracked concrete steps, graffiti partially covered with cheap paint, windows with mismatched curtains telling stories of lives lived paycheck to paycheck. The hallway smelled of old cooking oil and damp concrete, decades of meals and weather seeping into walls that would never be renovated. Flickering lights cast uneven shadows, one bulb buzzing its slow death. She climbed 3 flights of stairs, expensive heels clicking on worn tile that had probably been installed in the 1970s. Each step taking her further from the world she knew. She stood outside apartment 312, hand raised to knock. For the first time in years, Serafina Sterling felt uncertain. In boardrooms, she commanded authority through preparation and strategic thinking. Here, she had no leverage, no plan beyond honesty. She knocked 3 times, firm but not aggressive. William opened the door, packing tape still stuck to his fingers where he'd been sealing boxes. He froze mid-motion, recognition and confusion crossing his face simultaneously. Behind him, cardboard boxes lined the narrow wall, belongings half sorted for a life somewhere else. Books, kitchen items, Matilda's toys carefully wrapped, a small television unplugged and waiting. The systematic dismantling of a home. Serafina stood in the doorway, tailored charcoal coat open over a silk blouse the color of deep water, hair slightly disheveled from the wind that cut through the city streets below. She looked human in a way her corner office never allowed. Vulnerable, out of place, real. She held out a manila envelope, company letterhead visible through the translucent window. "Your resignation has been approved." William's voice was flat, stripped of emotion by exhaustion and disappointment. "You came here personally to make sure I disappear?" "No." Serafina met his eyes without the armor of executive distance. "Lose me?" The words came out harder than he intended. "I was just an employee, a technician who fixed things when they broke. You were the only person who saved the system from collapsing, and I let you be destroyed for it." Her voice cracked slightly on the last word, a hairline fracture in her usual control. Behind William, a small face appeared at knee-height. Matilda, 7 years old, with dark hair pulled into a simple ponytail, clutching her teddy bear with one arm and her father's leg with the other hand. She looked at Serafina like she'd stepped out of a television screen, this tall woman in expensive clothes standing in their doorway after dark, wonder and wariness competing in a child's eyes. Serafina's expression shifted, something in her chest tightening at the sight of this little girl whose father had chosen her over career security. She lowered her voice instinctively, the way people do when they realize children are listening, when they remember that decisions affect more than balance sheets. William moved instinctively, one hand dropping to Matilda's shoulder, protective without being aggressive. A father's reflex. Serafina lowered her voice. "I'm not here to give orders. I'm here to offer a contract. 30 days as a technical consultant. Your disciplinary record will be expunged. You'll have flexible hours for Matilda, and Bernie Collins will be investigated." William studied her face. "Are you doing this because you need me or because it's right?" "Both," Serafina said. "The system needs you, and I don't want to be the kind of leader who kills decency." William set conditions. Public acknowledgement of my technical work, medical support for Matilda, not as charity, but as proper employment benefit. And if Bernie retaliates, you protect us. Serafina nodded. "I accept." "Come in," William said, opening the door wider. 5 minutes turned into 30. The kitchen was small, the tea inexpensive, the chairs unsteady. Serafina sat without the armor of boardrooms and power structures. She looked around at the modest space, seeing a life built on something other than leverage and strategy. On a shelf, a photograph. Audrey Carter, dark-haired and smiling, William beside her, younger and less burdened. Matilda spoke without guile. "Mom used to teach Dad how to fix everything." William's eyes reddened. Audrey had a gift for systems thinking. She dreamed of starting something small but meaningful. Serafina found herself speaking truths she usually guarded. "I grew up in a family that valued achievement over emotion. I watched talented people get used until they broke, then replaced." She admitted what she'd never said aloud in a business context. "I hate weakness because I'm terrified of being left behind." William showed her the notebook, pages filled with technical diagrams and margin notes in 2 different hands. A. C. Fail-safe protocols. Audrey designed these before she died. Serafina's breath caught. She'd seen that exact notation in Sterling Dynamics documentation. The Aurora system module used identical architecture. "Your wife created this?" 5 years ago. She sent proposals to several companies. I don't know who implemented it. Serafina's mind raced through implications. Sterling Dynamics might have built its flagship technology on uncredited work, possibly stolen intellectual property. Her father's legacy, her company's reputation, founded on someone else's brilliance. "I'll investigate the origins," Serafina said carefully. "If we took something that belonged to Audrey, I won't hide from it." William shook his head. "I don't want revenge. I want the truth." "You'll get it," Serafina promised. William signed the consultant contract. "I'm coming back to save the system and end this the right way." Matilda watched her father with something like hope returning. At Sterling Dynamics, Bernie Collins received notification. William Carter, returning as senior technical consultant, reporting directly to executive leadership. His face went pale. This can't be happening. William walked through Sterling Dynamics like a ghost returning to haunt. Colleagues whispered. Eyes tracked his movement. Bernie Collins watched from across the floor, fear and anger competing in his expression. Serafina appeared beside William, not touching, but close enough to send a message. Protection, backing, authority. Bernie assigned William an impossible task. Repair a malfunctioning subsystem without proper components, then blamed him when completion was delayed. William checked the inventory logs against physical stock. Components had been deliberately miscoded, redirected, made inaccessible. He presented the evidence to Serafina with timestamp records and storage camera footage showing Bernie entering the supply room. Zane Drake arrived at Sterling Dynamics under the pretense of partnership discussion. In reality, he was circling a wounded company, preparing to buy cheap if Aurora failed. He met Bernie in a parking garage, away from security cameras. "Make it fail during the demo. I'll pay triple your current salary and give you a position in my organization." Bernie, drowning in exposure and desperation, agreed. Archie Sterling confronted his daughter in her office. "Don't shake the foundation because of one employee." Clinton Hayes added political pressure. "Decisions should serve company interests, not personal feelings." Serafina stood firm. Company interests begin with integrity. On a Tuesday evening, William walked Matilda home from school. A dark sedan followed 3 blocks behind, maintaining distance but never disappearing. At their apartment building, William found a note slipped under the door. "Leave Sterling, or the girl cries." William's hands shook as he hid the note from Matilda. She was already in her pajamas, brushing her teeth, unaware that someone had turned her into leverage. He called Serafina. She didn't delegate. She called Finn Parker directly. Increase security on William Carter and his daughter immediately. 24-hour coverage. She told William, "If they want to touch your daughter, they go through me first." At 1:30 in the morning, William's phone rang. Unknown number. A distorted voice. "Demo day. Choose the system or choose your daughter." William sat in the kitchen, lights off, fear crystallizing into something harder. Tomorrow would decide everything. William discovered the connection while reviewing old files at 2 in the morning. Audrey's original design documents, dated 5 years prior, matched Aurora's core module down to variable naming conventions. Not similar, identical. He sent Serafina encrypted files. She cross-referenced against Sterling Dynamics archives. The module had been integrated during her father's tenure as CEO. No attribution, no licensing, no payment. Someone had taken Audrey Carter's work and buried the source. William felt his foundation crack. "Your company built its future on my wife's stolen ideas?" Serafina couldn't hide behind corporate language. "If that's true, I'll make it right, publicly." William started packing again. "You came to my door because you needed me, but your company might owe my family everything." "Then I'll repay with truth, not money," Serafina said. She confronted Archie in his office, voice shaking with controlled rage. "Was Aurora built on stolen work?" Her father's face hardened. "You're going to burn the company over ancient history? If the company lives on theft, it's already dead." Finn uncovered communication between Bernie Collins and Zane Drake, financial transfers, plans to sabotage Aurora during the demo to crash the stock price. Clinton Hayes's name appeared in encrypted messages, suggesting he'd been coordinating with Zane to position for a takeover. Then, Sterling Dynamics Security received a complaint. William Carter allegedly breached system protocols, accessed unauthorized files, a setup designed to remove him before demo day. William was called into a formal inquiry. Serafina walked into the room before questions started. She placed her hand on the table. "He's not going anywhere without my direct approval." Outside, she told William quietly, "Don't leave me. Not until I fix what's broken." William said nothing, but his eyes showed conflict between anger and something else. Something neither of them had named yet. Demo day arrived with crystalline tension that seemed to freeze the air itself. Investors filled the presentation hall by 8:30. Men and women whose portfolios contained billions, whose approval or dismissal could reshape industries. Media crews positioned cameras with military precision, knowing that whatever happened here would echo through financial networks within minutes. Archie Sterling and the board of directors sat in the front row, expressions carved from stone and decades of corporate warfare, faces that had weathered market crashes and hostile takeovers. Serafina wore a tailored navy suit cut with geometric precision, hair pulled back into a severe bun that exposed the elegant line of her neck and the tension in her jaw. She projected executive control from every angle, but her hands trembled slightly as she greeted attendees, a tremor she disguised by keeping them in constant motion, shaking hands, adjusting notes, gesturing to presentation slides, never still long enough for anyone to see the fear underneath. William worked in the control room 2 floors below the main auditorium, surrounded by monitors displaying system diagnostics in real time, dozens of screens showing temperature, pressure, power flow, backup systems, fail-safes within fail-safes. His hands steadied on the keyboard despite the adrenaline making his pulse visible in his wrists. 6 years of night shifts had taught him to work through fear. But his phone sat face-up beside him on the metal desk, screen bright, waiting for the message he dreaded more than system failure. The Aurora system initialized at exactly 900 hours. Green lights rippled across the board like a wave of confirmation. Temperature nominal. Pressure within acceptable range. Power distribution optimal. Backup systems on standby. For 17 perfect minutes, everything worked as designed. Then, at 9:17, everything failed simultaneously. Backup power cut without warning. The sudden darkness lasting 3 seconds before emergency lights kicked in with their sickly yellow glow. Safety protocols disabled themselves in cascading sequence, each one triggering alerts that flooded the monitoring systems. Temperature warnings erupted across every sensor as cooling systems went offline. The exact pattern of coordinated sabotage that William had wargamed in his nightmares. Someone had programmed this failure, timed it, choreographed it to cause maximum damage during maximum visibility. Bernie Collins stood in the observation area overlooking the control room, performing panic with the desperation of a man whose lies were about to catch fire. "This is Carter's fault. His configuration disabled the safety protocols." His voice carried the shrill edge of someone who knew the walls were closing in. Clinton Hayes immediately echoed from his position near the board members, political instinct taking over. "Suspend him immediately. We can't have unauthorized personnel operating systems during a critical demonstration." William's phone vibrated against the metal desk, the sound cutting through the alarm klaxons and shouted communications. A video file loaded slowly, connection struggling through the building's network congestion. The image resolved. Matilda in a dark room, concrete walls, single bare bulb overhead. Her hands were bound with zip ties that bit into her small wrists. Tears streaked her face, but she wasn't making noise, remembering what her father had taught her about staying calm in emergencies. A text followed. "Transfer Aurora access codes in 60 seconds or she disappears." William went rigid, color draining from his face until his skin looked translucent under the fluorescent lights. Every instinct screamed to run, to abandon keyboards and protocols and corporate structures, to tear the city apart until he found his daughter. But leaving the control room meant demo failure, company collapse, thousands of jobs evaporating, investor lawsuits that would destroy Sterling Dynamics and everyone connected to it. The math was impossible. The choice was designed to break him. Serafina saw his expression from the observation window and understood instantly. She'd built a career on reading faces, on detecting weakness and opportunity in the micro-expressions people thought they controlled. This wasn't professional stress. This was parental terror in its purest form. She moved beside him in 4 long strides, ignoring protocol and hierarchy and the shocked faces of her technical team. "Where is she? They have Matilda." William's voice came out strangled, each word costing him everything to speak aloud. "You stay here, I'll go." William grabbed her arm, fingers tight enough to wrinkle the expensive fabric. "You're the CEO. You can't just, I'm a human being first." She turned to Finn Parker, head of security, a former military intelligence officer who'd seen combat in 3 different theaters. "Find the source of that video. I'm going with you." Finn's team traced the video metadata through network backdoors and compromised routers, following digital breadcrumbs that someone had been careless enough to leave. An abandoned warehouse 3 miles east, near the old industrial district where buildings stood empty between redevelopment projects. Serafina rode in the lead security vehicle. No assistant, no lawyers, no layer of corporate protection beyond Finn's team and the ceramic plates in their tactical vests. They breached the warehouse through a side entrance, hinges rusted silent from years of disuse. Inside, the space opened into a vast, empty floor plan. Support columns creating pools of shadow between patches of light from windows too high and dirty to see through. Bernie Collins stood in the center, wild-eyed and sweating despite the cold, holding Matilda with one arm wrapped around her small chest. Zane Drake stood 20 feet behind him, orchestrating from safety, far enough to claim plausible deniability, close enough to control the situation. "Send the access codes to my phone, or the girl doesn't leave here," Bernie shouted, voice bouncing off concrete walls. His hand shook visibly, fear making him dangerous in the way cornered animals become dangerous. William arrived moments later, having automated enough of Aurora's recovery sequence to buy time. Finn's team had brought him despite the risk because they understood. You don't negotiate for a child without the parent present. He walked forward slowly through the warehouse shadows, hands visible and empty, every movement deliberate and non-threatening. Combat tactics learned from late-night action movies. Inadequate preparation for the worst moment of his life. "Matilda, look at me. Just me. Breathe with me." His voice stayed steady through pure force of will. The same voice that had talked her through nightmares and doctor's appointments and the terrible nights after Audrey died. She was crying but trying to be brave, exactly like her father had taught her. Counting breaths. 4 in, hold, 4 out. The breathing technique they practiced together when anxiety tried to swallow her whole. Serafina stepped forward past Finn's restraining hand, placing herself between Matilda's line of sight and Bernie's desperation. She wore a $1,500 suit and carried no weapon except the absolute certainty in her voice. "You want access codes? Take me instead. Let the child go." Bernie's hand shook harder, the situation unraveling faster than he could process. Finn's team had positioned at every exit, red laser dots appearing and disappearing as they calculated sight lines and safe shot opportunities. The warehouse had become a cage, and Bernie was realizing too late that he'd locked himself inside. William spoke directly to Bernie, voice calm and deliberate. "Zane's paying you, but when this fails, he'll cut you loose. You know that, right?" Bernie's eyes darted to Zane, seeing confirmation in the businessman's careful distance. Finn moved. Bernie went down. Matilda ran into William's arms, sobbing. William crushed her against his chest, whispering, "You're safe. You're safe. I've got you." Finn had recorded everything. Bernie's confession, Zane's coordination, Clinton Hayes' complicity in messages retrieved from Bernie's phone. Serafina used the evidence immediately. She walked onto the demo stage, Aurora still flickering with instability behind her. She told the truth. Sabotage, corporate espionage, and the man who stopped it, William Carter. While she spoke, William stabilized Aurora remotely, bringing systems back online through backup protocols and manual override. The demo continued. Aurora ran flawlessly. Zane Drake and Clinton Hayes were escorted out by security, headed for investigation and prosecution. Bernie Collins sat in handcuffs, career destroyed by his own desperation. After everything, after the investors left and the media dispersed, Serafina found William holding Matilda in a quiet hallway. "Are you still planning to leave?" Her voice was rough with exhaustion and something more vulnerable. William looked at her, then at his daughter, then back. "I don't know." 2 weeks later, Sterling Dynamics held a press conference that changed everything. Serafina stood at the podium where Aurora had nearly failed. Banks of cameras captured every word. Financial journalists filled the front rows. She announced the Audrey Carter Innovation Fund, $10 million for independent inventors whose work might otherwise disappear without credit. Full transparency, every recipient named publicly, every contribution acknowledged. "We built our success on brilliant work that went uncredited." Audrey Carter's contributions to Aurora should have been recognized years ago. That failure is mine to correct with truth and systematic change. William stood in the audience, tears on his face he didn't bother hiding. Matilda sat beside him, small hand wrapped around his, understanding that her mother's name was being spoken with respect. Bernie Collins and Zane Drake faced criminal charges. Clinton Hayes resigned. Archie Sterling stepped back from operations after a 7-hour board meeting. Serafina restructured Sterling Dynamics methodically. She fired managers who weaponized policy. She implemented family-first scheduling. She created transparent promotion tracks, salary bands published internally, credit clearly assigned. Talent would be recognized, not exploited. She offered William Chief Technical Officer for Aurora Development. The salary was significant but not absurd. The real value was what he demanded. Schedule flexibility locked into contract, transparent credit documented publicly, protection from retaliation written into severance clauses. "I accept," Serafina said. William moved to a better neighborhood but chose comfort over status. 2 bedrooms, reliable heat, proximity to Matilda's school. The new apartment had windows that closed properly and a kitchen where the stove worked. 3 months later, Serafina knocked again. Not for work or crisis. She carried Thai takeout and a children's book about a girl building a rocket ship. Matilda answered, no longer afraid. "Miss Serafina, do you like fairy tales?" Serafina smiled, awkward but genuine. "I'd like to learn what you enjoy." They sat together, Matilda between them, correcting Serafina's dramatic narration with giggles. William watched her relax degree by degree. Saw a woman without boardrooms or power structures. Just loneliness, finding belonging. Later, after Matilda slept, they sat in the small kitchen with tea and comfortable silence. Rain drummed against the window. "I never thanked you properly," William said, "for standing in front of my daughter." "You showed me what courage looks like," Serafina replied. "Choosing your child over everything else." Their fingers intertwined across the table, meeting in the middle of a space neither expected to find. One winter evening, snow falling soft, William opened his door to find Serafina there. No emergency, no contract, jeans and a sweater instead of corporate armor, holding a small wrapped box in trembling hands. I accept that you left once. I accept that Matilda comes first, always. I accept that I can't erase what the company did. She took a breath. But I won't lose you. Not as your CEO, as a woman who wants a family. William's throat tightened. Matilda appeared behind him in pajamas, understanding before he spoke. He nodded. Serafina stepped inside. They formed a shape that felt like completion, 3 people holding tight. The apartment stayed small. William didn't move to a penthouse. The furniture stayed simple, some second-hand. But 3 people lived there now, building something more valuable than empires. Matilda fell asleep between them one Sunday afternoon, science book open on her lap. William and Serafina sat on either side, fingers intertwined over their daughter's head, watching snow fall in thick flakes that transformed the city. The city lights glowed in the distance, vast and indifferent. But here, in this modest space, something more valuable than empires had taken root. A family formed not by blood or obligation, but by choice, by acceptance, by refusing to let go of what mattered most. Serafina had come to his door twice. First, to save her company. Second, to save herself. She didn't plan to knock a third time. She planned to stay, to learn Matilda's school schedule and William's coffee routine and the way the radiator clanked on cold mornings, to become part of ordinary magic that happened when people chose each other daily. Outside, snow continued falling. Inside, 3 people slept. A father who'd learned walking away could be the bravest choice. A daughter who'd survived being leverage and emerged capable of trust. And a woman who'd discovered power meant nothing without people to share it with. The empire would continue. But none of it mattered as much as this. 3 people, breathing in synchronized rhythm, safe and chosen and home.